Sarah Mitchell sat alone at the corner table by the window, watching raindrops trace delicate paths down the glass. At 28, she'd learned that life rarely followed the neat patterns we imagine for ourselves. Her hands trembled slightly as she smoothed down her red dress, the one her sister had insisted she wear. "It shows you're confident," her sister had said. But Sarah didn't feel confident. She felt exposed. The cafe smelled of fresh coffee and cinnamon, familiar and comforting. She'd arrived 15 minutes early, a habit born from years of trying too hard, of being too eager to please. Her blind date, a man named David, would be here soon. Her friend Emma had set this up, promising that David was different and kind. Sarah had heard those words before. She touched the small scar above her eyebrow, a reminder of mistakes she'd made, roads she'd traveled that led nowhere good. Her past wasn't pretty. There had been bad choices, broken promises, and a year that left her questioning whether she deserved a second chance at anything, let alone happiness. The door chimed softly. Sarah looked up. David Harrison walked in, and immediately she could tell he was the one. He had that gentle, weathered look of someone in his early 40s who'd seen both joy and sorrow. His gray polo shirt was simple and neat, his dark hair showing just a touch of silver at the temples. But it was his eyes that caught her. They held a kindness that seemed genuine, not the practiced charm she'd encountered before. He spotted her and walked over, his smile warm but tentative. "Sarah." "Yes, David?" She stood, awkwardly, unsure whether to shake hands or simply sit back down. "It's nice to meet you." He sat across from her, and she noticed he seemed a bit nervous too, which somehow made her feel better. "Emma told me a lot about you." Sarah's stomach tightened. Did she? What had Emma said? Had she mentioned the past year? "The mistakes? She said you have a big heart, and that you're trying to rebuild your life." His voice was soft, without judgment. "I respect that. We've all had to rebuild something at one point or another." Sarah felt tears threatening and blinked them back. She wasn't used to kindness without conditions. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." She hesitated, looking down at her hands. The question that had haunted her for months rose to her lips. "Do you think I still deserve happiness?" The words hung in the air between them. David didn't rush to answer. He reached for his coffee cup, took a sip, and seemed to genuinely consider her question. "May I tell you something about myself?" he asked gently. Sarah nodded, grateful he hadn't given her a quick, empty reassurance. "I'm a single father. My daughter Lily, she's 12 now. Her mother left us when Lily was just 2 years old. Just walked away one day." He paused, his fingers tracing the rim of his cup. "For years I was angry. Angry at her for leaving, angry at myself for not being enough to make her stay. I convinced myself that I didn't deserve to be happy again, that my job was just to be a good father, and that was all I should expect from life." Sarah listened, seeing the pain etched in the lines around his eyes. "But Lily, she changed how I saw things. One day, when she was about 9, she asked me why I never smiled anymore. That broke my heart. I realized that by denying myself happiness, I was teaching her that life was meant to be endured, not enjoyed." He looked directly at Sarah now. "Everyone deserves happiness. Everyone. The question isn't whether we deserve it. The question is whether we're brave enough to accept it when it comes." Sarah felt a tear slide down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. "I've made so many mistakes. So have I. So has everyone sitting in this cafe, right? Now." David's voice was steady, reassuring. "The measure of a person isn't in never falling down. It's in getting back up, and you're here trying. That takes courage." They talked for 3 hours that afternoon. Sarah told him about her struggles, about the wrong relationships, and poor choices that had left her feeling worthless. David shared his own journey, the loneliness of single parenthood, the fear that he'd never connect with anyone again, the weight of trying to be both mother and father to a growing girl. As the afternoon light began to fade, David said something Sarah would never forget. "My daughter has taught me that love isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. It's about showing up, even when you're scared, especially when you're scared." Sarah smiled, a real smile this time. "I'd like to meet her someday. Your daughter." "I'd like that too. But only when you're ready. There's no rush. David stood, preparing to leave. Can we do this again? Maybe next week? I'd like that very much. As Sarah walked home that evening, the rain had stopped. The streets were washed clean, puddles reflecting the streetlights like scattered stars. She thought about David's words, about deserving happiness, about being brave enough to accept it. For the first time in a long time, Sarah felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel: hope. Not the wild, unrealistic hope of fairy tales, but the quiet, steady hope that comes from knowing you're not alone in your struggles, that someone sees your scars and doesn't turn away. She didn't know where this would lead. Maybe nowhere, maybe somewhere beautiful. But for tonight, she allowed herself to believe that happiness wasn't something you earned through perfection. It was something you accepted through grace. And maybe, just maybe, she was ready to accept it.